For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Sashnee Moodley. Researcher and analyst, Professor Raymond Suttner, joins me for Suttner's View, a weekly commentary on South Africa's political scene. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
We often read about the Guptas and state capture. Are South Africans not unnecessarily obsessed with this?
Yeah, I think maybe people are feeling they've heard enough, or they have heard so much that they've built up an immunity. But if you just look at the new things that are developing, you know, there's like a developing story now over Eskom. I mean, it's just hard to conceive that a Gupta firm buys a mine and then they haven't got enough money to pay for the mine because they want to supply Eskom because they've got people in Eskom who will look after them. And Eskom actually gives them money in advance for the coal. Before they've delivered anything, they get 600 million or some huge amount. And if I remember correctly, the coal was of inferior quality. But there is that thing happening which affects not only Brian Molefe, Ben Gubane, but also the Minister of Public Enterprises, Lynn Brown, who last year denied that there were any deals. And what Amabungane have done is they've gone to the paper trail and showed that Trillion, which is owned by this chap Essa, who's associate of the Guptas, were paid monies by Eskom. They sent invoices before they'd done any work at all. Now there's a whistleblower that's there who says she queried and she said, but what are we actually invoicing for? I think the firm was started in March. Their first invoice for millions is in April. And so I don't think that we are unnecessarily concerned. And I think that what we're concerned about now is different from conventional corruption. When Schabir Shaik went to jail, Schabir Shaik had proven to have transferred money to President Zuma in the hope or expectation that Zuma would do certain things for him. Now, the scale on which the Guptas operate is beyond bribing individuals, testing their honesty, diverting funds and things like that. What they are doing is actually interfering with the functioning of the state. When they offer money to an individual and say that he can be made Minister of Finance, which is alleged with BC Jonas, what they're really doing is trying to place people in positions where they will be able to regulate state activities in a way that is not a barrier to the activities that they want to undertake. Now, they target the finance ministry particularly because the Treasury is charged with ensuring that deals between state-owned enterprises, parastatals, and other companies follow particular regulations. Now, in order to have corrupt deals, you can't follow regulations that are laid down in the Public Finance Management Act and things like that. Now, because the Guptas were repeatedly involved in activities that were suspicious, I think there's 6 billion, at least 6 billion transactions that were transactions to the value of 6 billion. They, a number of banks, just about every bank in South Africa now, has refused to allow them to bank with them, including the Bank of China, which is not obviously from South Africa, but it is registered here. They then tried to buy a bank, and the Reserve Bank refused to give permission, it didn't follow the regular path. So you've got a situation where already you have a hollowing out of a number of institutions of state. Now, some of these institutions have engaged in activities that relate to the Guptas' fortunes. For example, when the Hawks were hovering over Pravin Gordhan, when the so-called rogue unit in SARS was allegedly being exposed last year, when the NPA brought charges against Pravin Gordhan, Ivan Pillay, and Van Lochenberg and Magashule, it all related to activities that were being monitored by SARS initially, not now, with a different head, by SARS, by the public, by the Treasury, and similar bodies. And they wanted to remove these people, either through the president removing them or through them being put in jail on trumped-up charges. So it actually means that not only are the Guptas trying to get deals on favorable terms, which may be illegal, but they're trying to use organs of state, not just in terms of appointments, but in terms of policing action and in terms of prosecution in order to remove these people. Now, it's not just happening at the national level. In the Free State, before Zwane was brought up as Minister of Mineral and Energy, he was involved in some dairy farms, which the Guptas were involved in, which has turned out to be yielding no benefits for the Free State province. When he came up here, as it happened, it was the time, he was made minister at the time when the Guptas, through Trillion, were going to buy the Optimum mine. And Zwane went to, it's in this Amal Bungani report, he went to Dubai and then he went to Switzerland as a minister, and he was involved in securing the deal for the Guptas. So I don't think we are unnecessarily concerned. I think the concerns that people have is over something called state capture, on which a lot more work has to be done, which is an attempt to take over the powers of the state and make them benefit particular individuals and a particular family, instead of the sovereignty of the state being defended, the independence of South Africa. It's actually being undermined in this way. I don't think it's the only place. I think there's quite a literature from the World Bank and other places about this.
How do we stop this?
You know, it's part of the general problem of South African public life. Will the ANC recover its integrity? Or if the ANC won't recover its integrity, will the power of citizens, the power of the courts, and you know, one doesn't want to be using the courts for everything, power of the courts, power of civil society, the power of the combined opposition be sufficient to push it back? In my view, the way they operate is a demonstration of power, but the courts have removed Mklameza. It's probably never going back. But the ANC is feeling the heat in terms of the level of support that it is losing, which does not mean that there's a simple answer, because you can see already in Nelson Mandela Bay, the coalition that the DA formed is actually now shaky, because forming coalitions between people who are not like-minded is quite difficult. Even if you've got almost 50% of the vote, that Nelson Mandela Bay coalition can fall away. So whether the opposition will play a key part is not clear, but at the moment there's a lot of embarrassment, there's a lot of public anger, and I think there's a fair amount of public awareness of it. But this national dialogue idea, if it can be transformed into a way that builds a coalition of forces, maybe it can help towards that.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about whether we are unnecessarily obsessed with state capture and the Guptas.